Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter. This is our study group. Today is the 14th of March, 2024. This is our 111th study group. We're so excited that you're here. Today we have an interview with Robert Snyder. He's going to talk about innovation elegance, what a people-centric methodology looks like. Our mission here at Tampa Bay IIBA Florida chapter is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the BA community. Our BA community is worldwide, and we are so excited about that. We are called the Tampa Bay Florida chapter, but we have people from all over the world that are members of our community, and we welcome you. We want you to reach out to us and be active members in our chapter so that we can lift each other up. We have a variety of ways for you to reach us. This is our Thursday evening study group from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We have it every Thursday evening unless we tell you otherwise. We also have LinkedIn groups. We have our meetup. This is our Zoom online every Thursday night. We have study group materials, including the attendance sheet on the Google Drive, and then we have meeting recordings on YouTube. Right now we have about 100 meeting recordings. Everything from our professional series of people that you want to talk to, people that you want to know how they work so that we can work better with them as BAs, to our study group, where we talk about the practice test questions, why one answer is better than another answer so that you can become certified. Watermark Learning has been our constant companion through our study group. They've given us a discount code of 20% off of any of their products. This discount code is Tampa space 21. They not only have business analysis products, but product management and a couple of other topics, flashcards, classes, all kinds of things that you might want to check out. Our board is all volunteers. We have Cliff here on the left. You might see him there in the Millennium Falcon. Yulia is our Vice President of Finance. Vivian, Uche, Esther, and Alicia are board members. Alicia's our brand new board member. Esther is a whole week old. So we are growing and getting better and better so that we can lift you up. If you'd like to reach out to any of our board members, please do so through LinkedIn. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for our chapter. It is my job to help you. If you have questions, if you have user stories you want reviewed, if you want to know how to apply for a certification, whatever you need, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll do my very best to help. We would like to have a couple more board members if you're interested. Being a board member is not super time intensive. What we want is people that will help us lift our chapter. So if you have 2 hours to contribute, you want to attend the study groups anyway, contact me. We have study group advisors. You see Bob Churchill there on the right. He has been our constant study group advisor with his CBAP. Having him attend our study groups means that you get an education hour credit for attending the study group. Bob also has his website, rpchurchill.com, and on his website, he has the Tampa Bay Index. What that means is all of our study groups that have been televised are on this index. If you want to look at it by topic, say chapter 3 in the BABOK, he has a link to every single one of those videos in that. He's done a phenomenal and huge amount of work, but it's so beneficial so that you can find the different topics that we've covered and be able to access them quickly. Yulia and Uche are also CBAPs that allow us to give you an hour of credit. We like to celebrate our wins. We had a new person reach out that said participating in our study group or watching our videos helped them earn their certification. So I added SEMA to our list. We would love to hear it if our study group has benefited you in earning your certification or in just being a better business analyst. That's our goal here. We typically focus on the IIBA, the CBA, and the CBAP, which are the certifications based upon the BABOK. The IIBA also has 4 additional certifications that are designed for you to take after you've earned your CBAP. So if you want any information about any of those, reach out to me. Tonight, we have Robert Snyder going to talk about what a people-centric methodology looks like. And he gave me a whole lot of words, guys, and I did not cut any of them out because they're all important. I'll let you read them at your leisure. This is on our Google Drive. Next week, we have Betsy Stockdale going to talk about AI and what does it mean for the business analyst. She's going to lead us on an exploration of AI's transformative role in business analysis. We can use AI, but only the people that can use AI are going to have jobs in the future, probably. There are some things business analysts do that AI cannot do. So the combination of the two is golden. The week after that, on March 28th, we have an international panel from all around the world going to come together, and we're going to have 4 questions about what is it like to be a business analyst in other countries, so that we can do a contrast and comparison of what it's like in England or Sri Lanka to be a business analyst to here in the United States. And I bet you we're going to find out that we're pretty much the same. We just have a couple of differences. But business analysis around the world is something that we can all improve on, and we can help each other. The week after that, April 4th, Leanne is going to come back and talk about her passing the CBAP. She just recently was a study group member for a while, and she came back and she said, I want to tell people what I experienced, what they might need to know, and help them get more prepared for passing and taking their CBAP. So we're having her on April 4th. On April 11th, I'm not going to say her name right, Miss Plummer is coming back. She used to be a board member of the Tampa Bay IIBA, and she's going to talk about organizing and managing requirements. She's got some information she's going to be forwarding pretty soon, and we will add that to this slide. On April 18th, Hugo is coming to talk to us about sourcing skills using nearshore talent. There's terms onshore, nearshore, and offshore, and he manages an organization that manages nearshore talent. And I wanted him to come talk to us because as business analysts, we don't often get to do the strategy or decision making, but we do need to know the ins and outs so that we can better relate and better organize. On April 25th, Patty Soltis is coming to talk about her experience. She has been a CX expert and with huge amounts of experience, but she wants to talk about priorities of leadership and gaining understanding of roles and responsibilities at a leadership level. What that means for us is we're not often in the C-suite. We don't often work with the C-suite people, but when we do, we need to understand what they're talking about and how to relate our information to them in the best way. And after that, we're going to go back to the CBAP study test questions. For those of you who are interested in the CBAP's test questions, we're going to start that in May. What we have is all of our study groups have been recorded on YouTube. We have about 4 study groups for each chapter. Instead of saying we're going to spend 2 weeks on each chapter, we're only going to spend 1 week. But we want you to do a preview test. A preview of each of those 4 hours of study groups for that chapter before you come to the meeting, because we're going to go through the test questions and you're going to be ahead of the game. So get started on that now. We'll drop the link to the YouTube we're going to drop the link to Bob's worksheet that has access to all the YouTubes in the chat so that you can get started on that now. And we're all going to take the test together, but we're going to get prepared starting in that month in, let's see, May, and then we will get ready to take the test. I'm going to turn the screen over to Robert, and he's going to talk about some stuff that just thrills me to no end. Take it over, Robert.
Thank you very much, Thea. How is my audio?
Very good.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining, everyone. And during this session, I welcome Q&A all throughout. Feel free to interrupt. Take yourself off mute. I think an animated chat window can be very entertaining, so go crazy if, to your heart's delight. I'd like to start with one of my favorite cliches. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. I could apply that cliche to a lifestyle scenario, such as a relationship, a job, or a move. I could apply that cliche to your business operations. But tonight's session applies that cliche to your business innovation methodology. Nothing will change until that status quo is more painful than a transition. What is your status quo? Your status quo is some combination of two and a half software-centric methodologies: waterfall, agile, and hybrid. As if what makes innovation teamwork difficult is the software. As if when a team gets itself into trouble, a developer goes to the scrum master, project manager, or sponsor and says, hey, that Python code that I've been working on, it's really difficult. So sorry. No, that's not a thing. What makes innovation teamwork difficult is it's us, it's people. It's how we interact, it's how we govern each other, it's how we collaborate or how we suck at collaborating. So, formulating a people-centric methodology should not make anyone's head explode. It's not rocket science, it's overdue. And that is why that's why I wanted to title this material a people-centric methodology. One of my favorite authors and thought leaders is named Simon Sinek, and he challenges us with his world-famous TED Talk, Start with Why. So let's start with why. Why this topic and why now? It's because project success rates are poor. Because often the employee experience is poor. And because these incumbent methodologies have not solved VUCA. They've had 20 years to solve VUCA. For those of you who would like a refresher on the acronym VUCA, it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And because some of you have heard this acronym 20 times this month, maybe you'll be amused at its sibling acronym, BANI, which stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Oh my goodness. It's just a crazy world. And numerous people are just telling us, well, we're just in a VUCA environment. You must surrender, acquiesce. It's just messy. No. I refuse to accept a VUCA environment when the metaphors, the lessons that we have available to us are so close and they're already tiptoeing into our vocabulary. They already have tiptoed into our cultures, and that is a good thing. But our status quo, we do need to innovate how we innovate. The gravity of a methodology, I mean, how big of a deal could it possibly be? What is the relationship between the methodology we use on a day-to-day basis and the health of our projects, the health of our jobs, the health of our professional relationships, and our mental health? What could be the relationship? A poor methodology can ruin these four things. A good methodology nourishes these four things. Similarly, what's the relationship between our methodology and our leaders, our managers? A poor methodology is difficult for good and strong leaders and managers to rescue. But a good methodology is difficult for crap leaders and managers to ruin. That is the gravity of our methodology for our businesses and life. Of course, this material is based on one just published book. It's on the left, and one book that I believe will be published in about a month. When I try to put labels on a people-centric methodology, my brain goes in two different directions. One is, let's put labels on what good looks like and what bad looks like. But also, I've got two parts of my brain to label this stuff. There's the left brain, the rational, the serious side, and there's the right side, the emotional, maybe the touchy-feely side. Let's put some labels on what good looks like and what bad looks like. The rational part of my brain lands on the term chaos. And if different words, any words, come to your mind about how you would populate this, go ahead and feel free to put it in the chat. For example, the next box I'm going to populate, what does good look like according to the rational part of my brain? In a recent presentation I gave, the word that someone preferred was structure. I like structure. The word I landed on is discipline. That other part of my brain, what bad looks like, the word I chose was cruelty. And what good looks like is a word that's, yay, it's already in our vocabulary. The word is empathy. So together, chaos and cruelty is a culture of VUCA. And together, a culture of discipline and empathy is nothing short of elegance. And that is why I call this body of work Innovation Elegance. I'm going to take a quick peek at the chat. Confusion, lack of role clarity, organized, order, love it. Thank you, thank you. Let's take forward these 4 words, what bad looks like, chaos and cruelty, and where this body of work aims to evolve organizations is toward a culture of discipline and empathy. At the moment, over the last 20 years, as structured documentation has fallen out of favor, what has replaced it? Meetings. Back-to-back meetings. Meeting gridlock. Also, we message a lot, whether it's in email, Teams, Slack, etc. We have a tsunami of email, and we are in a culture of email overload. And together, it slows down all the cars on the road. Many of us are caught in communication traffic jams. We're caught in VUCA, being told we have to accept VUCA. Accept that, well, where do we work? Well, maybe I work in a frustration factory. Does my company resemble a factory, a frustration factory? We can't accept this. What discipline and empathy look like and what forms the agenda for tonight's session is, the first metaphor is instead of a frustration factory, it's an agreement factory. I believe a healthy team is a kind of agreement factory. And I can see these bundles coming down a conveyor belt. I joke that a dysfunctional team is a kind of disagreement factory. Where do these agreements reside? In my head? Across 20 smart people's brains? The most valuable agreements that teams form need to be on paper. And together, they are valuable, they are durable, they form effectively an asset portfolio. So the second metaphor for tonight is an asset portfolio. Together, these metaphors are vital, they're valuable, but I admit they are dry and sterile. Where's the fun? Where's the mischief? Where's the romance? Where's the beauty? The creativity? I look to the metaphor of the performing arts to provide inspiration for us to create and collaborate, choreograph, riff off each other. This is what sustainable innovation looks like when it becomes addicted to these 3 metaphors. Together, they form a culture of elegance. Because tonight's session is only an hour, I'm going to treat this slide as an appendix slide. If we have the time and the appetite, I will come back to this. But for tonight, these are slightly out of scope for tonight's session. This forms our agenda for the next 50 minutes. And the takeaways. That RACI matrix that's had 2 decades to improve project success rates and has not succeeded. The good news is it almost got it right. The RACI matrix almost got it right. But if we are going to shape a healthy, rhythmic agreement factory, we need to rethink the RACI matrix. The second takeaway is that I'm going to show you a fraction of this asset portfolio, only a fraction. And these templates, is there an did someone want to interject?
I don't think so.
Okay. So showing you a fraction of this asset portfolio, they're templates. I hope you will see them as simple, almost administrative. They are small hinges that swing a large door of culture change. And finally, let's confront this term that's been common for a couple decades. The term is competitive advantage. Companies want to find and pursue and secure a competitive advantage. And we've won. We are now in a hyper-competitive environment. What is the frontier of an advantage? I believe the frontier of advantage is a collaborative advantage, which means we collaborate better than anyone else. That would be an exciting place to be, and the performing arts are an exciting venue, pun intended, and metaphor for us to pursue with ambition, reckless abandon, a collaborative advantage. First agenda item, an agreement factory. If you have team members that term, an agreement factory, we agreed on this, we agreed on that, if that makes anyone a little bit nervous, this term is a hedge to say, okay, if the word sign off makes you a little bit nervous, how about a more politically correct term, an expectation setting factory? We're not rigid, we can change our minds, but we must set some expectations. Your team is a kind of expectation setting factory. Before your next project starts, your team is going to set certain expectations in the form or the format of a roadmap, a scorecard, voice of the customer, etc. This is not an exhaustive list. It's representative of project independent expectations that your organization will revisit and realign on at a certain frequency, sometimes quarterly, sometimes monthly, and some of these expectation setting vehicles justify a weekly rhythm. And then your next project starts and you've got a whole new suite of expectations to put on paper. Storyboards, GUI design, project charter, process flows, training materials, SQL. And because these are now governed within a project, the relationship they are to each other is either sequential, one after another, and some of them are simultaneous, they're in parallel. So together, these form an expectation setting factory. And Thea, I'd like to pause and see if there are any reactions, facial expressions that folks want to come off mute, or should I march ahead?
We have nothing in the chat. Folks, let's make an agreement. If you're interested in saying something and you don't want to just interject, throw something in the chat and we'll call on you. But right now we have nothing in the chat.
Okay.
Actually, if I just had a quick question, relative to what an expectation setting factory is. So if we're looking on the broader sense of doing research on just expectation setting and saying that the business stakeholders expect this or this, like from a core business analysis standpoint, or from a business analysis standpoint, how do you recommend changes within the business? Like, for example, do you like look at like profit and loss drivers, growth drivers that are in the business, so something like that? Or so like from an innovation perspective, like how do you say that, okay, these are separate projects, like project specific, but different tracks to which you would, be interested in acquiring requirements for that, or business analysis tracks, because this is amazing. Like I definitely I love the topic. So just a quick question about that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for the question. Um, I felt that there might be a few questions in there, and where would I like to take this? When you mention profit and loss, the culture traits of a culture that hurt project success rates, the root causes are not in the finance department. So this material does not stretch so far to try to re-engineer what is going to be outside a project team or outside an innovation team. So that's my attempt at giving you a succinct answer, is that, again, this material aims to solve certain problems. It's about project success rate, the employee experience, and it's solving VUCA. So this material cannot boil the ocean and stretch into employee pools that are outside the innovation team.
And so they're I really, like you said, boil the ocean. That was really interesting. Thank you so much. The a core in a project specific within VUCA, like how can you like eventually judge how volatile like a certain project is initially by just by initially looking at the steps of that, or the processes within the business, whether it's like Oracle, like ERP or CRM CRM services like customer relationship management or ERP. That's the core area of demand where you'd ask for volatility analysis. So like, is there like a specific format that we could use that would be wonderful?
Yes, in a few slides, I will show you that.
Oh, amazing.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much. That's the only question. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you.
We do have a question from Vivian. Are we concerned about groupthink whenever we're talking about this?
So great point. Groupthink is a risk. I would ask you to consider the difference between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. The framework that I'm going to propose in a couple slides, I don't explicitly say it, but again, the question, the concern about groupthink is important.
Okay.
So agreement is in the spirit of divergent thinking, but we must have convergent thinking to be aligned so that we're not, quote, all over the place. But I wouldn't, it tries to combat groupthink.
Right. Good point, Vivian.
Yeah, that's an important concern. So thank you for raising. Thea, should I move on?
Jillian said synergy. I think that's the term that you're probably going for.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, please move on.
Okay. So this metaphor of a factory, just how valuable, how applicable is it? I believe that even though your team isn't literally a factory, you should manage it like one because you care about all the same things. In the most generic factory you can think of, this word cloud describes the culture traits that your factory cares about. You care about speed, tempo, quality, fidelity, its degree of automation, the economics and the scalability of the factory, its ease, how much vigilance and oversight does it need, its elasticity, its amount of waste. Your team is a factory. But we might use slightly different terms. We commonly hear terms like bottlenecks, which affects speed. We use the word bureaucracy, which affects speed. Fear, which affects quality. And I could go on. And the insight here is that these words, they're just not that different. You can ignore the culture traits of a factory, but the culture traits of a factory do not ignore you. A common framework to govern innovation is called the RACI matrix. If any of you are not familiar with the RACI matrix, it stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And to use a RACI matrix, along one axis, you would inventory the work the team wants to formally manage, assign, set some expectations. And on the other axis, your RACI matrix inventories your employees, the names or the roles or the titles. And at the intersection, you would assign a letter, R, A, C, or I, depending on the nature of the contribution that that person applies to that piece of work. An R, an A, a C, and an I, or it's just blank if a person has no involvement at all. Over the course of my career, I've concluded that a RACI matrix gets a burst of attention at the beginning of a project, and then after a few days, week to week, month to month, teams only reference the RACI casually. It does not maintain sustained discipline for the team. It feels like it dies a quiet death and provides a false sense of governance. I believe it harbors too much ambiguity. You're trying to govern with adjectives. It lacks teeth. And again, the RACI matrix has had a couple decades to raise project success rates, and project success rates remain poor. I believe we need to rethink, reimagine the RACI matrix. Now, when I reimagine the RACI matrix, I think of the three communication channels. The first communication channel of meetings. Can I rethink the RACI matrix for an infinite number of meetings? I don't think so. I think that is a bad idea. Can I apply or reimagine the RACI for emails? An infinite number of emails? I don't think so. I think that's a bad idea. What communication channel is left? It's structured documentation. A finite number of structured documents. There might be a lot. A project team might have a lot of documentation that is worthwhile, but it's not infinite. And later I'll show you about 60 things that I believe are worth documenting. But can I reimagine the RACI matrix to structured documentation? Yes. And where I landed is what I now call the 5 verbs. The 5 verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. This very simple framework shows effectively a RACI, but verbs, not adjectives. I have a clear sequence, where the RACI didn't give me a clear sequence. I have assignments, just like the RACI matrix, and also now I have a duration. So now I have some visibility into the schedule of when this verb, when this activity might take place, much like a musician who has sheet music in front of them, because they know, as the xylophone player, as the trumpet player, as the tuba player, they know when they are expected to play. And finally, the 5 verbs in a project plan. give space for percent complete. So we can see, we can record a sense of closure and see our sense of progress and momentum with clarity. The 5 verbs promote a culture of simplicity without being simplistic, and transparency. And one of my favorite quotes is from this book, this author: execution's 2 best friends are simplicity and transparency. The 5 verbs are unapologetically formal governance. Everything else, I wouldn't prohibit it. It's just evidently not worth documenting. 9 to 12 months, we're not going to care about it. It's a chat. Maybe do it at the pub. You might not even need a keyboard. But the 5 verbs on repeat is sustained discipline in this format. The clarity is through the roof. I believe there is zero ambiguity about what these 5 verbs mean. It is a racy, but with teeth. And there are more subtle, profound benefits to the 5 verbs. One is you turn a culture of a boxing ring of people into a boxing ring of ideas. It promotes this notion that task conflict, right, instead of groupthink, the task conflict is within review and revise. Task conflict is good. Personality conflict, out of scope. Disagreeing is good. Demonizing, out of scope. Thea, there's some things in the chat. Any reason to pause?
Not so far.
Okay. So this snapshot of the 5 verbs, instead of applying to 1 asset, now you see 3 assets: a project charter, training approach, training materials. You can see the 5 verbs, 4 rows. You see the dependency, the assignments. These are explicit. They are not rigid. The ink is always wet. You can always modify these if and when the composition of the team changes, the composition of your stakeholders change. Something has a delay. Increase the duration. It's not a crime. An American football analogy, for those of you familiar with that sport, there's a phrase in American football that says, got to keep the chains moving. And this is what it looks like. These 2 orange sticks on the side of an American football game convey the team needs to move the ball 10 yards or it has to turn the ball over. It is ruthless progress. And what the 5 verbs give us is the ability and the mandate to keep the chains moving. The next question might be, well, okay, I remember those word clouds, but what are all the things that we might apply those 5 verbs? So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I see I marked it appendix, but to give you a more comprehensive view of the hierarchy of an asset portfolio, what are all these things that are worth documenting? Because we as BAs, any employee is only going to have visibility or contribution to a fraction of these assets. The first palette is the project independent assets that I believe are worthwhile for any innovation team at a quarterly rhythm, at a monthly rhythm, at a weekly rhythm. The middle palette here is for project specific assets under the umbrella of project management, process, and people, also known as change management. And these assets really map to a framework called ADKAR, A-D-K-A-R. I don't spend any time on ADKAR in this presentation, but if you're not familiar with it, I think it's a really valuable framework to be familiar with. So consider that your optional YouTube viewing this weekend. Learn ADKAR and its siblings, change management frameworks. And then finally, of course, we have design, build, test, and there's 20 things, 20 plus 20 plus 20. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of good, durable, valuable, collaborative work. But it's not infinite. And 5 years from now, anyone hearing my voice will think of a 61st item, a 62nd item. So the 5 verbs combined with this asset portfolio is very extensible. It's scalable for if and when your team realizes, we've got a new agreement, right? In this agreement factory, we've got a new agreement that deserves the formal governance of 5 verbs. Again, Thea, I'll pause before I start transitioning into the next agenda item.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Robert, do you have templates for some of those that we can access? Would they be in your book?
So yes, in 3 different ways. In this presentation, I cover 5.
Okay.
My upcoming book, the second book, contains all 60.
Okay.
And I have a website up now that it's a little bit dated because I wrote these micro reads, these blog posts, I think in 2021. But if you go to innovationelegance.com, look up the blogs, you can scroll through many of these. So you'll get a spirit and a sense of them. And some of them are, they're in good shape. They're still, I don't know, I'll call it current. But I just want to hedge because I wrote these blogs in 2020, 2021. And the best versions of them are going to be in the upcoming book.
Okay, so would it be fair to say, as business analysts, we need to understand what the options are? We need to be familiar with the different documents and what the benefits and possibly limitations are of each.
Yeah.
And then when we start a project, get agreement from the team of which of these documents are valuable and use those documents.
Yeah, I love all that.
Okay.
I think it's worthwhile challenging yourself and challenging your team in an almost confrontational way. What do we do that's worth documentation? What do we do that we'll want to remember with clarity 9 to 12 months from now? And everything else, don't prohibit it. Just have it opt out and designate it to say, this work, not only is it not worth documenting, but we actually prefer to avoid putting it on paper for whatever reason. But
and there are going to be some industries that require certain of these to be documented and retained for a certain number of years. But if you're in the industry, you're probably aware of that. But going into that industry, you might not know what the format is or what exactly it contains. So your resources would be beneficial.
Yeah. And again, none of this is rigid. I'm just providing a framework to shape this agreement factory. Any organization may change its mind about something being worth 5 verbs or just a chat and step away from the keyboard. But I think another strength of this methodology is it's very upfront, transparent, and welcoming of what you want to opt out.
One of the benefits of having the 5 verbs and having the agreement is everyone has accountability, and that's especially valuable whenever you have a distributed workforce. If your people are not all sitting in the same room working, it's much more difficult to know what people are doing, what you understand that you're supposed to do, when it's supposed to be delivered. So you set it up where it makes our work flow and we can make progress much more easily.
I agree. I'm glad you mentioned that. The word that came to my mind, Thea, as you were talking, is the word trust.
Yes.
You can treat trust as a leading culture trait and then think of what are the results of that upfront trust. Or you can treat trust as a lagging culture trait and wonder, in order to achieve trust, what do I need upstream? What are the leading culture traits to establish, maintain, improve trust? And I believe when you mentioned accountability, there's a phrase for teenagers. Teenagers want all the rights of adulthood without the responsibilities of adulthood.
I know some adults that do that too.
And so we have colleagues that want decision rights without decision responsibilities. We have colleagues who want authority without accountability. And the 5 verbs neutralizes that.
Right. I better let you continue with your presentation.
Okay.
We could continue to chat,
Okay.
but you have more to show us.
So as I slowly pivot into the assets. I want to show you 5 assets. Maybe this is the closing remark about the agreement factory. Your team has a lot of stuff moving around. Your leaders, your executives always want instead of a faster horse that Henry Ford used to joke about, companies want a faster, fill in the blank, a faster agile. There's a quote that I stole from an American automobile executive from the last century. And one of Lee Iacocca's quotes is, "The speed of the boss is the speed of the team." I had a problem with this. And so I wanted to tweak this quote, and where I landed, and it won't surprise you, it's the synchronization skill of the boss is the speed of the team. Because when a team treats speed as a leading culture trait, speed, what does it end up with? Our status quo of communication traffic jams. In order for us to have speed as a lagging culture trait, keeping the cars moving, think of the most busy intersection, the busiest intersection you know around the world. Think of that roundabout. What keeps the cars moving is a synchronization skill. And I believe this applies to leaders today, that leaders who have a synchronization skill, they facilitate impressive speed for their team. So I'm crediting, just like me, I'm crediting amateur musicians everywhere for this quote.
Bob says you hit the nail on the head. We're good.
Okay, awesome. So let's take a couple more views of the 5 verbs and what they look like in a project plan. Here you see, I see 12 weeks, but I see weeks 1 through 3 zoomed in. I see 5 verbs, but I see them repeated. So instead of repeating stuff in a RACI, I'm repeating the 5 verbs in my project plan. My default, I see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I see a duration of 1 day. That probably is, you know, I can change that. And gosh darn it, you know what, as a musician, I kind of see quarter notes. I see eighth notes. I see a rhythm. I see a rhythm in these 5 verbs. And
Hey,
so
Robert, I have a question.
Please.
You've said 5 verbs, but I'm only seeing 4 on each of these. Am I missing one?
Well, so you're seeing 4 rows, right?
Oh, you review and revise are together. I see.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so one of my teams for a while asked that we track, review, and revise separately. I thought it was overly partitioned. And maybe a month into it, they slowly agreed. And they felt it was insufficiently granular to separate, review, and revise. It's just like, okay, we have a draft. We want to formally mark, okay, we at least have something on paper. Now let's review and revise it until we hit a tipping point to say, okay, we've done our divergent thinking. We've done our convergent thinking. We haven't reached consensus. The person assigned, approved, is a built-in tiebreaker. They are a built-in escalation point, a micro escalation point. And so that's, you know, if your team preferred 5 different rows, I think it's okay. This is just where my teams landed. 5 verbs, 4 rows. And then the latter part of the project here, you really see weeks 4 through 12 emphasized. The verbs are underneath each of these, so I don't show the 5 verbs anymore, but hopefully you can get a sense, like the 5 verbs don't go away. And I'm sure you've met someone who doesn't want to see the gruesome detail of a project plan. Or if you hide the detail from them, they may ask later, wait, what's underneath that? What's underneath line 38, architecture? The answer is always the same. It's always the 5 verbs. So now I've greatly simplified my project planning, not only the planning, but now the interpretation of that plan. But some fraction, Thea, I'll pause again before I go into skeptics.
No, I think we're good. Does anyone have questions? Go into skeptics.
Okay, so I see that, yeah, I'm falling pretty significantly behind. Skeptics prefer these culture traits. They prefer verb sprawl. They'll acknowledge, a lot of our work, it's not worth documenting. I like my meeting minutes. I like a hyper-competitive environment. I want my task lists and project plans to be squishy. I like verb freedom. Maybe I like meeting gridlock. It's understandable. What's that?
Those are not the people you want on your team.
I'm going to let, so fair.
But sometimes you have them.
The reason why I believe it's understandable is this short blue bar. If we look at the cost profile of this kind of culture,
Mhm.
it's just darn easy to just call that next meeting and send that next email. The upfront
Yeah.
cost is low. But when we acknowledge we have a love-hate relationship with meetings, when we say things like, I can't get to my real work until after 5 o'clock, the reason why we start resenting meetings and emails is this high orange bar. It's so extreme that a company called Shopify, I don't remember the details now, but this is easily Googleable, that they constricted the flow of information by forbidding certain meetings of a certain size on certain days of their week. They pulled the lever of meetings. I fiercely feel that they pulled the wrong lever. And again, what this material does is it pulls on the lever of structured documentation. The meetings are gonna be fine. Your emails are gonna be fine. But let's compare the cost profile. And by cost, I mean our laboriousness. This cost profile represents a culture that leads with meetings and emails, and it treats documentation casually. Like, take notes, Johnny. CYA, meeting minutes. What would the inverse be? If we lead with documentation, we lead with the 5 verbs, we just need enough meetings and emails to accomplish the 5 verbs. And of course, its cost profile is the reverse. This tall blue bar explains why companies grumble about structured documentation. It is completely understandable because it is significant upfront cost. But you know what we benefit from with structured documentation? It's the short orange bar, because now the information sharing, it's just cheap and easy. The collaboration, it's on paper. We can weave talent in and out to contribute. And this culture has a low marginal cost. I joke that you can ignore, just like you can ignore the laws of gravity, but the laws of gravity don't ignore you. You can ignore the laws of low marginal cost, but the laws of low marginal cost don't ignore you. A culture that is addicted to meetings and emails produces disposable work. It is laborious. The latency for information traveling is high. It is a license for low expectations. On the contrast, work governed by the 5 verbs. That shit is durable. Our planning, we now have muscle memory. Our planning is a form of automation. I now no longer have to have my brain power focused on the mechanics, and I can transcend the mechanics of our collaboration into style. And I'm trying to make a dance reference there. The latency, the duration for information to propagate to other parts of the company, it's low latency. It's now easy to involve a 38th stakeholder, a 39th, a 40th stakeholder, so on. It is a license for high expectations. That is an environment that I would love to work in.
Me too.
Again, a quote for all the teenagers. Do what is easy and your life will become hard. Do what is hard and your life will become easy. So I'm looking at the time. Thea, should I try to wrap up in 5 or 10 minutes?
If possible, please.
Yeah, okay. So what I'd like to do is I'm gonna slowly walk through these templates because this is recorded. These are on the blogs. These are in my book. And you can take snapshots. Thea has the PDF to distribute. And again, this is recorded, so you can pause this video at any time. Individual status reports are a way to manage up without kissing up. Your workload, it matters. A workload report keeps levels of idle work and idle workers modest. I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. I don't think you have to finish these sentences every week, but I think you have to look at these 4 sentences every week. And if something comes to mind, I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder is a low footprint engagement survey. All of us need to be approached, approachable, coachable, and coached on these 3 communication channels. This tool aims to micro-mentor our meeting etiquette, our email etiquette, and our contribution to structured documentation. This approachability menu, again, aims for disagreement to neutralize demonization. And my playful subtitle for this deliverable is, I know you hate me, but what do you want me to do differently? A very rigorous lessons learned, built on the framework of I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. This is about turning the screws on the pattern in the problems. There aren't a million things that can go wrong on a project. The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule applies. There's about a dozen. And teams, I believe, will help themselves if they continually, monthly, monitor these 12, 13 culture traits. If you had the best team in the world, this is what their lessons learned exercise looks like. This is the perfect team. And if you had the worst team in the world doing a lessons learned, this is what their lessons learned exercise looks like. This is my attempt at humor. All right, we are in the home stretch. I'm going to try to finish in 3 to 5 minutes. What about the arts? What I mean by performing arts, it's improv, it's partner dance, it's music, and it's theater. Across these arts, there are wonderful culture traits to imitate. This word cloud shows the culture traits that the arts bring us for collaboration. Let's not be naive. We are competitive human beings. We are ambitious. So we need skills for both sides of rejection. We need skills for failure and balancing among the sopranos, altos, tenors, basses. And let's not forget who we do it for. There are so many culture traits at the intersection of the innovator and customer that we can learn from the artist-audience intersection. The performing arts inspire enforced collaboration. If you don't want to be part of this symphony, karaoke is next door. Let's acknowledge our competitive energy and be ambitious on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of our ensemble, our team, our company. Ambition is never wrong. Let's be ambitious. But instead of being competitive, I just want to collaborate better than anyone else. If we had time, we could talk about the culture traits that are unique to each art. Feel free to stop the video if you're watching the recording. Again, these are culture traits that each of the arts teach us that we should love in our own environment. So I'm in the home stretch.
Honestly, I think you could say the same thing about sports. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you could say the same thing about sports too, especially a team sport.
Amen.
Point.
So this reference to hybrid, we've heard hybrid in terms of waterfall and agile. We've heard hybrid in terms of remote work or in office. And I'm playfully proposing a new hybrid where teams ask themselves, are we on script or off script? Either is okay, but not knowing is not okay.
Very good point.
So I'm going to try to wrap up where we started. Your team, your status quo may not be that painful. When people ask me, Robert, who is your target audience? My short answer is exasperated innovation professionals who work inside a frustration factory. But nothing is going to change until your status quo is more painful than your transition. What we covered in this session is a proposed improvement to the RACI matrix so that you can shape a healthy, clear, rhythmic agreement factory that's durable. We flew over 5 templates that I'm hoping are so simple that you feel like, these are administrative. But these are small hinges that swing a large door of shaping culture. And we covered how the performing arts can give you a collaborative advantage. We talked about communication traffic jams, chaos cruelty. We talked about discipline and empathy, and the 3 metaphors here in this green triangle. This is more, this spills into the scope of the books. We didn't really cover these. I do think imperfection is an important point. You talk about failure, sampling errors, human error, no problem. But what this framework, what this methodology aims to do is minimize systemic errors and systematic errors. I don't ask for perfection. I just ask for perfect intent. So my call to action for you is that on your own terms, on your own schedule, within your comfort zone, within your team members' comfort zone, crawl, walk, run to a people-centric methodology. The software is going to be fine. Choose 5 verbs over a project plan with verb sprawl. Choose work with durability over work with disposability. Choose synchronization over traffic jams. Reduce the laboriousness and the latency. That is the time, the effort, and the duration of your information sharing. Disguise empathy through those templates. Choose ambition over competition. I showed you 4 arts tonight. Maybe just choose one. Whatever art resonates with you, immerse yourself in it, imitate it to build a collaborative advantage. What if our project plans imitated a symphony? And don't apologize for great documentation, because it's a kind of love letter to your future team. This is me on LinkedIn. Please say hi. 1 book is out the door. 1 book is about a month away. And that's enough for tonight.
Robert, you were the first presenter that I wanted to clap at the end of your presentation. Fantastic. Good job. Yes,
That was amazing.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Okay.
reactions, what's thumbs up? Go ahead, Thea.
I think you did a fantastic job. I'm so glad we recorded this because there are so many people that will benefit from this now and in the future. So I'm excited about it. And would you mind if I use some of your material in my presentation at BBC in a month?
You're welcome to. Just give me credit at the bottom of the slide.
Of course. Of course. You get the credit. Okay. If anyone has any questions, either reach out to Robert directly or reach out to me and I'll be glad to pass it on. Robert has provided me the PDFs to this presentation, and you also have the recording that will be listed on LinkedIn very soon so that you have access to it. It'll also be on Bob's master sheet of all of our YouTube documents. So you have the recording.
Can we have a copy of the slides as well?
That's the PDF I'll send out to you. Well, I'll put it on the Google Drive so that you can have access to it.
Sounds good.
Can
Thank you.
you send me a copy?
I will be glad to. I will be glad to. Robert, you've been fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next week. If you're interested in participating in our practice test questions, getting ready for your certification, go ahead and start looking at those practice test question meetings that we have for introduction to chapter 1 of the BABOK now, because there's a lot of material to cover. You have 4 hours of that, at least 2 hours of that to cover, so that you can be ready whenever we have that meeting in a little over a month. And then you can go ahead and work on chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but so that you don't have to do it all in 1 week. So again, Robert, thank you so much. I will see everyone here next week, and you'll see our topics on LinkedIn. Have a
Thanks
good
for
evening,
hosting me.
guys.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Vivian, I put that stuff in the chat for you.
He's gone.
Okay.